Greetings, everyone.
Hello.
Ready to begin?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for joining us today. I'd like to introduce myself and our moderators today. My name is Philip Dela Cruz. I'm a faculty development specialist under the Office of Training and Organizational Development. I'm joined here today with Stephen Venter, Shannon Dew, and Audrey Ante as moderators. Okay.
And Brandy.
And Brandy.
Brandy Bleak as well.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Philip, for doing this.
My pleasure.
For coming and learning everything here.
My pleasure. Okay, so let's begin. The purpose of this course, as you may already know, is to provide an introductory training on the Canvas Learning Management System. It is intended to be a course that will provide attendees with the opportunity to become accustomed to the interface, building and managing course content, grading, and also in communicating with your students. How to get the most out of this Canvas Basics training, you might ask? We're going to focus on content development today as opposed to looking at this as a software application. So I'm going to try to focus on basically how to get your course started. We're going to have 4 sections here: maneuvering within Canvas, building course content, communicating with students, managing the course, and after each segment we'll have a Q&A session, a live Q&A session, and we also have moderators available to answer any other questions you might have. On top of that, after you leave today, we'll have a Canvas training module, or a course rather, available in your Canvas account. And you'll find there a series of modules that covers everything that we talk about today in greater depth. All right. Okay, so to begin, we're going to talk about maneuvering within Canvas. Compared to Blackboard, you're going to find Canvas very streamlined and intuitive. Happy to report. This is what it's going to look like. You're going to have a global navigation to your left. You'll see a blue strip here. On the side, you will see, I'm going to pop out to the dashboard actually. This is what you'll enter. This is the screen that you'll see once you enter Canvas. You have your dashboard in the middle with a series of cards that represent your courses. To the right of that, you will see a sidebar. On the sidebar, you will see a series of things that will change depending on where you're at within Canvas. You will see a series of assignments that might be due, calendar events. You might see course management items such as publishing, student view, other items that we'll talk about later. To revisit the dashboard, you'll have the opportunity to develop some meaningful language to your students. So they might have an array of courses. We can now apply color association to them, also meaningful pictures that relate to the subject matter. And the global navigation is always going to be there no matter where you're at. And so we'll begin with the global navigation. The first item on your global navigation will be your account menu item. And this provides a few things such as profile, settings, notification, files, and ePortfolio. In greater detail, the profile link will provide the opportunity to present your scholarship and your bio to your students, your audience. To demo this, I've built my own biography here. You have the opportunity to link to an external web page, also an ePortfolio within Canvas. I'll step into the ePortfolio for demonstrative purposes. It's going to show you, once you log in, it's actually going to help you develop your ePortfolio. To go to your actual ePortfolio, I'll click this link here. And so it basically reads like a web page. It tries to make web design really intuitive for you. Just to showcase its benefits, here I've categorized things that relate to my job at FSCJ and former teaching experience. So I have a page for my teaching. I have a page for my service at FSCJ, special projects I've collaborated on, and also previous roles. So that might be a helpful menu item for you. Under settings, you will find other things that pertain to how Canvas is presented on your side. And so you'll have things like your approved integrations. This is where our third party or LTI would populate. And then under feature options, this is again your user experience, so you could do things like affect how it looks on your screen. To the right, this is a very important panel to look at, ways to contact. So if you are, say, if you teach at multiple colleges or universities, you might use another email. So this is where you would apply that for communication with your students. Else it'll go to your default FSCJ email. And then you also have the opportunity to input your text or your phone for text messages. And so you could do so at the other contacts menu item on the side. Okay. All right, so down below, this might look a little different than yours if you're looking at your laptop. So I have an admin item. The dashboard we've taken a look at. This is your default page. And so to differentiate between this dashboard menu item versus courses right below it, dashboard just shows what you want to be shown. But if you go to courses, this is the comprehensive list of all the courses that you are aligned with, okay? And so I step into this one just to point out this orange star, if you could see it to the left. This is what decides what is shown on your card view in that previous panel. So if I untoggle that star to a blank star, I step back into my dashboard, that course is no longer there. And to undo that, I would just naturally go back to all courses and retoggle that. On this course listing, you also see your past enrollments and groups that you might be affiliated with. Okay. Let's step into dashboard for a moment. This is an area for us to explore things like how to make our courses more intuitive of a read to your students. You may have a course title that might be a bit much in characters with numbers, reference numbers, and class numbers and sections, and might be confusing to your students. So within Canvas, you're going to often see the 3 vertical dots, and that means you can edit that content item or that web element. So if I just demo that real quick here, I'm going to click the 3 dots on this card view. I can now rename my course just to give it a nickname to make it a bit more user-friendly. You can also associate it with a color. And so if your student has, say, 8 classes or 5 classes or whatnot, we can quickly now associate a course with a meaningful picture or color. I'll show you how to add a meaningful picture to it in just a few. But that is essentially how to edit your cards and your course listing. Next, you'll have your groups down below courses. And your students may have, if you assign study groups, this is where they will see them under your groups. Under your calendar, I'll cover this in greater detail. This is a nice communication tool for your students and you, where we can organize our weeks. And we'll go over this a little later, but it's really nice and intuitive. You can actually edit your assignments and due dates interactively within the calendar. You'd also filter in other courses and filter out. So it's a really helpful tool for productivity. Then you have your inbox. This could be a complicated topic for some. We'll cover this in greater detail under the communication segment of today. Studio would be our replacement for media space. So previously we had Kaltura media space. We have an item now called Studio. And so this is a place where we'd, basically it's a video repository. If you want to create your greetings or you have movies to share, this is where we house them for our courses. Under that is our Commons. And this is the Canvas community at large. This is where we host shared content. You'll see templates for courses, you'll see quizzes, other things that you can poach from. Below that, you'll have your Follett, book adoptions. All this is doing is it's piping to the Follett webpage that you normally go to. What it does is it really just, for convenience purposes, it embeds it within Canvas, so it's more of a convenience. You could still go to the external web page. And I say that because in certain cases, it's slow to load, so you may come across that hang-up, but be rest assured that it's just embedding and it's transferring that over into our server, and so it might take a little bit. And down below that is our help item. I'm happy to report that the Canvas support for any questions you may have is very, it's more than sufficient. We have a Canvas live chat. We also have a number that you can call. I've actually tested it myself, and it's super responsive. We also have the FSCJ technical support. Those tickets, if you have any questions about that, feel free to contact me later. Basically, if you submit a Canvas ticket, it goes straight to our EdTech team. And then we have our Library and Learning Commons guides as well. And then if you have a feature that you'd like to suggest, we have a menu item for that. Okay, so that is, in a nutshell, the global navigation. And I will step into the dashboard. Let's see. And we got our sidebar. We've discussed that. So let me revisit the PowerPoint. Okay, so we've covered the global menu, global navigation, our dashboard, and sidebar. Now we could step into our course menu. Okay, I'm going to step into our Canvas training module here. And so if you'd like to learn about anything that we offered today in greater depth, this is what you will see. And you will see a series of modules that talks about every element within Canvas. And so right now, we are looking at the navigation. And then you'll have a series of assignments embedded within. And so below that is what you'll see. Yours might look a little different if you're logged in. These are your course menu items. And these things are, I would say, customizable to a certain extent. If I go to my settings, for an example, you'll have, what's really important to note is this navigation tab here. And this is where you can customize what menu items you'll see as far as hierarchy, and everyone's different. So in this case, we have modules up here, and then down below, you'll see a second set of menu items. These are things that are hidden from our students. So if you'd like to make any alterations for demonstrative purposes, you can just intuitively just click and drag. I'm not going to use my chat feature, so I just drag that below. And that is essentially the way to hide that feature from your students. Okay. You'll find other things that might not be helpful for your class. So for instance, perhaps you don't want your students going through all of your assignments at one time in one fell swoop. So you may tuck that away. Okay? And so once you make any changes within your course menu, I have to point out the Save button at the very bottom. So to inherit the changes, we just have to hit Save. Okay? And that, in a nutshell, is the course menu. So what we'll do next is we'll move on to content creation to discuss these items in greater detail. Okay. All right, so let's open it up to any questions you might have about the navigation, shall we? Any questions so far about navigation or anything? Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry? Unavailable? Okay, so let's talk about this. This is a very common question, so I appreciate that. In your menu, you'll see some items that are dark gray and some that are light gray. And so that means I either don't have an announcement to populate, or I'm hiding it from the students. So it can mean both. In this case, we don't have any announcements to share. You'll see that under recent announcements here. That's the placeholder for your announcements. That'd be very equivalent to if you're visiting a weblog and you have just a teaser of those articles, you'll see those articles truncated here under that heading. Okay, and I'll demo that. So let's take a look at, for a moment. Okay, so our esteemed professors, Dr. Betsy Stout-Morrill and Megan Glenn, offered a course to demonstrate some of these items. To answer your question, here's our recent announcements portion of that webpage. And so they do have a populated announcements content list. And so what this is going to do, it's going to be in descending order. In our communications portion of the course, I'm going to show you how to delay your posting. So you can now, when you migrate your courses from Blackboard, you can keep your announcements and then just delay them and release them whenever you want. Okay. Does that answer your question? Okay, awesome. Yes?
On the messenger, on the inbox, do those copy to our email?
They do. So that's a great question. Thanks for answering that.
Question for those.
Okay, great. So the question was, when we get messages into our Canvas inbox, does that go to our FSCJ email? Okay. So the answer is yes. And I'll demo that to you. So if I go to, let's see here, I'm going to go to my sandbox here. I've got all these tabs open. Let's see, go to my dashboard, go to my sandbox. Okay. Now, and we'll cover this in greater depth on the communications portion, but to answer your question, I'm going to step into inbox here. You're going to see, much like any email reader, you're going to see all your emails listed. And so when a student emails you within Canvas, it actually notifies you through your Outlook email. And it looks a little different if you reply within Outlook. You're going to see here, and I'm just going to use Judith, her example, our communications. It looks very clean. So this is an example of what it would look like if you reply through your Outlook. So it's going to bring in my signature from Outlook. It's going to misinterpret invisible elements within Outlook, like this. This doesn't show in my Outlook. It might show a URL instead of just being a URL. And it might not show images, like if you have the FSCJ logo, it might be broken. So you might see these broken links. And then you'll have timestamps, address and all that. So it's a lot for the student to weed through. So I would highly recommend to you today is to, if you do get that notification in Outlook, just let it perhaps exist as a notification, pop into your Canvas and reply there, because it's just a bit more cleaner of a communication. But it will notify you, and you can reply through Outlook. Okay, and I'm happy to announce that we have online moderating, so anyone watching today, feel free to send your questions. All right? Yes?
On the dashboard, if you have a lot of different classes, can you arrange them and how they make sense for you if you're in 2 of them instead of 10 and you're using those?
Thank you, Barbara.
Arrange them.
Thank you, Barbara. That's a great question, and I skimmed over it, so my apologies. But what's nice about Canvas is it's very intuitive and has a great user interface. You can click and drag your card view. And so, but you can also, on the 3 dots, you can move also. So there's a second tab here where you can move top, ahead, behind, bottom. And that's really helpful to point out tonight because depending on your operating system, that clicking and dragging this might not be functional.
I was going to say, I tried that.
Yeah.
It didn't work.
Yes, that's a great question.
Behind
That's-
the scenes there.
For sure. Thank you. Thank you. Great question. Any other questions? Okay. All right, so let's move on to our next portion here. We're going to start to introduce how to build our course content. There are a series of content types within Canvas. We're going to look at modules, pages, syllabus, assignments, and quizzes. Okay, so I'm going to revisit Dr. Stout-Morrill's for demonstrative purposes here, just to showcase a potential. When we think about modules, it's a common question. It's basically for file organization. That's all it is. It's basically a folder that you drill into. And so we could think about it as a section, a unit, chapters. You could basically do whatever you want with a module and tuck things under it. It's basically for that linear process or that linear delivery of educational content. In this case, what's really helpful to show is perhaps providing students upfront resources. So if you're using these third-party apps, here's how to, here's what to look for. An orientation before we get into the meat of the content. Perhaps you provide your syllabus within there. So one-stop shopping. So, and we bring that up because you may be confused with, okay, well, I have my syllabus here, but then on my course menu, I have my syllabus linked there too. So it's a bit of redundancy there. A lot of folks are opting to place their syllabus within a file or page, and we'll demo that later. And so it may be formulaic. So within a module, you may have a page, you may have a file, you may have an assignment or a quiz. So there's a lot of opportunities to develop your modules in a way that best suits your educational delivery. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at pages as a second content type. Actually, let's backtrack. I'm going to show you how to create a module. Would that be helpful? Okay, so I'm going to go into my sandbox here. Actually, let's go back to this one. Okay, so right now, in the middle portion of your canvas, you're often going to see this blue button. Anytime you want to create a content type, simply just look for the blue button. In this case, I'm going to build a module by clicking the blue button. And you'll have a title field. So I'm just going to name this Week 2, Subtopic B. Okay. Beyond the basics, we'll go over things like adding prerequisites and lock until, so you can hide modules if you need to. In this case, we're just going to add the module. And so it goes through and adds them sequentially. Very similar to our card view, you can rearrange by just dragging. Okay. I'm just going to drag that back down below. You can also condense. So you'll find an arrow, a drop-down arrow. And along this module creation, you're going to have three buttons here to the right. One relates to publishing. So a frequently asked question is, my students can't see my modules. This is where you would apply that functionality. So you just simply click Publish. And do be rest assured when you're building your course, if it's not published, they won't see it. So that's another frequently asked question. So you can keep things published while your course is unpublished and not worry about it being seen. Okay. And so that's essentially module. And we think about it as a unit or a section. Okay. Pages would be the second content type to look at. You'll notice that in your course manual, you'll have pages available. This is something that a lot of instructors will also hide, just so we don't look at all the pages in a sequence. We want them delivered within modules. Okay, so you might want to consider hiding that menu item as well. But to begin to populate this demo module, I'll go ahead and go into Pages. Okay, and then it's going to show View All Pages. I can't really create them within this interface, but I'm going to go to All Pages here, and you'll see that blue button again. This will show a list of all my pages, and so when I want to create a new page, click the blue button. Your sidebar will change. You'll have your title field. I'm just going to say Overview Subtopic B. And this is a great point to present to you the rich content editor. It's going to look very much like your word processing ribbons. All these items here are going to be text formatting options. So they should look pretty familiar. And then we'll point out a few new options here. This is where we'll use this later when we embed our syllabus, where we link to a URL. You can embed images here. And then you can also pull in from YouTube if you need to with a simple search. So really nice and convenient. Other helpful tools are the external tools here. If you have, and I wanted to point this out because it still says ARC, but we've changed ARC's name to Studio, but this is going to pull from our video repository, should you want to pull in something pre-recorded. We also have our library research guides, films on demand, and the Microsoft Office 365, you'll also see that in your course menu, really wants to pull in files from your OneDrive. So if some of you may use your OneDrive on your Outlook, some may not, but it's basically another cloud storage for your documents. So if you want to pull from that and save your data space on your course, within your course, you can pipe in from Microsoft Outlook or Office 365, and it pulls from your OneDrive. Okay. So I'm just going to pull in some sample content here just to demo this. Here's my heading, and I've got some descriptive text here. I'm going to go ahead and pop into a lorem ipsum just to populate the space with a proxy text. Okay. Huh, okay. 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 So for accessibility concerns, you can now select a heading per se and create it a header 2 for our text readers, and then you want to use the paragraph for your text for the text readers out there, and your header 3. There are going to be opportunities to provide files to your students. So I'm just going to create a list here to demo this ribbon. And perhaps this is where I might pipe in an external file or syllabus. You'll notice that on your sidebar you'll have a Files tab. I have some things preloaded here. Basically, if you, through your migration, you may have your files existing already within your file directory, or if you need to upload, you can always upload a new file. Right now I'm just going to select this text, and we'll pretend this is a syllabus. I'm just going to select that text and click the file, and so it takes care of all that hard coding for you, and so that's a really nice convenient feature. You can also do it with this button here if you want to link to a URL. It's doing the same thing, but Canvas does make things nice and intuitive for you. Under this page, you'll have things like options, can edit this page role selection. So basically this means like if you don't want anyone to edit this but you, this is where you would clarify the permissions. Else if you have if you want to create a wiki with your students and you want them to edit a page, this is where you would add that, okay? Now once I want that available to the student, I hit save and publish. And so to revisit modules, we're going to step back into my home, and under the week 2 module that we just created, I'd like to demo how to add content to it. So you'll have this plus icon in the middle to the right of the module, and this is how you would add content. So when you're building your courses, you might think about outlines. So in my outline, I've got my modules. Now I want to start to populate with content. So I built a page. And so to add that page, you have your drop-down menu here. Default, it's set to assignment. So now I can say, okay, well, I want to just add that page that I created. So I'm going to select page. You have a list of pages here that I created previously. And with my format, I always do an overview. So I'm going to put that first within my module, and I'm going to add that item. So very simply done. Okay, and then under that item, you'll have the opportunity to indent. So that's just for the visual appeal, if you will, to show that parent-child relationship a bit more distinctly. I'm going to decrease that. The other items are edit, so you can go back into that file if you like. duplicate if you want to just create multiple and just use that as a template. And then you can move up and down if you have multiple files. Should that interactive drag and drop not be functioning on your computer, else you can drag and drop. You can also remove them here too, and then share to comments, okay? All right, so let's revisit our pages, okay? The syllabus is another topic to tackle here. All of us are asked to use our syllabus builder still, and so I'm just gonna step into my online syllabus builder to demonstrate a workflow that might be helpful for you. And this relates to what we just previously did with a file linking. I'm going to go to my syllabi here. Oops, I got to log back in. Okay, so within PeopleSoft, I'm going to go click on Online Syllabus Builder. Should authenticate. I'm going to go to manage my current syllabi. And I'm just going to view a syllabus online. I'm not going to pull the actual URL from there. I'm actually going to download it. Because when we provide that URL to our student, it's this super long URL, and that might not be user-friendly. So what's helpful for some of us is to download it, rename it, if you will. That naming convention might not be significant for your students. So I'm just going to download that here, and then I'm going to jump back into my course. And under Files, you'll be shown your another file repository. And within that, I can now upload. I'm going to point to the downloads folder. And I'm going to point to the PDF. And it'll be a replacement of something that I've uploaded already. And there it is. So now I can pop back into my module. There are a couple of options. You can add the file. So, for instance, I can actually add the file directly by, under the drop-down, go to File. Then I can point to that PDF. Just to demonstrate the difference in presentation, I'll go to, I'm going to click this, and essentially brings it up within Canvas nice and conveniently. And so this is really helpful in case your audience doesn't have a PDF reader locally. And so it's nice embedded within Canvas. So that's a very nice option for you. Else, if you want to preface things and have a course orientation, you can then populate it with your text, and here's what we're going to do, and then apply the link, the text link to the file. So that might be desirable as well. Okay, so that's syllabus. Assignments would be another area for us to look at for assessment. I'm going to pop into my assignments menu item next. Now you may see it grayed out. It's only because I'm purposefully hiding it from the student. Very similar to our other content items, we click the blue button, and you'll see very similar features with the title and rich content editor. So here we're going to point out things where we apply our values, our point values. So beneath the content editor, we'll have our point values here. We'll also look at assignment groups. Actually, we'll cover that in greater detail in the next class and Beyond the Basics. And so with that, to clarify, assignment groups is helpful for grade weighting. Now we have the option of displaying the points at the grade as percentage, incomplete, complete, points, letter grade, etc. So a lot of flexibility there for your grade book. And to differentiate, sometimes instructors will want to see within their grade book, which we'll show later, everything as points, but they show as percentages. And vice versa, this is where you would change that presentation within your grade book. Okay. Below that, we'll have our submission type. So this is where we decide, okay, how are we going to ask our students to deliver evidence of learning. So we have, this might be a no submission, so those of you that might be teaching live and have assessments where it's like, for instance, math, where you're working out problems and then you have physical tests, you still want to populate your grade book. And so you might have to use a no submission, and then fill in the grade value manually. Online would be providing things like URLs, media recordings, and rich content. On paper, and then you have, actually the online, you can also submit documents with file uploads. So if you want them to turn in a PDF or a Word doc or a script or something like that for computer science, this is where you would apply it with online. And then external tool. In our other classes with LTI and Beyond the Basics, we'll cover how to pipe in our third-party apps. Okay? Now below it, you'll have an assign panel. And this is where we assign it to a group or individual specifically. Due dates, everything's standard here with availabilities and due dates and or when things become offline. I'd like to point out the add feature. So say like you have a special recommendation or consideration. So if you have a military student or someone that spent time away, but you'd still like to provide them an opportunity to turn in the assignment, this is where you would do it. So perhaps here is where you apply due date for the class, and then say you have an exception here, and you want to apply an additional due date. You can do that here. I'm just going to have Robin as that student, and this is where I would apply that additional due date. Okay. All right. So save and publish. Oops, I need a name, so I'm just actually going to cancel this out. But that's how you would create an assignment. Okay. All right. Lastly, on this building course content section, we have quizzes. Okay. Now, quizzes is very similar to the other content. We'll just have a different set of panels to utilize. I'm going to go to my quizzes menu item on my course menu. And this is basically going to show a list of all the courses that you have, that you will have populated within your Canvas course. So I'm going to click the blue button here. And you're going to see a lot of standard things with your rich content editor and title. And then this is where you pull in your question banks. We can talk about this for a couple of hours, so we're going to defer that to another time. For demonstrative purposes, we'll just cover how to create a new question, just to show some of the differences between Blackboard and Canvas and their question types. In brevity, once we're in the question tab here, we have the opportunity to name the question and apply point to it, to the right. Okay. In the middle, we'll have the question types. Okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, I'm just going to select multiple choice for demonstrative purposes here, and very similar to the Super Bowl. Obviously, there's no right or wrong answer to that. It's all speculation, but in this case, we'll just put the Jaguars. And so we have the opportunity to provide feedback. To do so, you would look for the 3 dots below the question. You want to change your feedback, just look for the pencil icon. Change the answer, you look also for the pencil icon. To discard that question, we just hit that trash can icon. Okay, very straightforward. And then we do so with, also we repeat that process for our incorrect answers. So we just populate it. And then really important to point out, when you're revising your quizzes and you'd like to edit a question, be sure to hit update question instead of hitting save, because sometimes when we edit our questions and we hit save, it doesn't inherit all the changes to that question. So I like to point that out tonight. So be sure to always hit the update question when you're editing your questions. Okay. All right, so that is quizzes in a nutshell. All right, so let's open it up for Q&A. Any questions about content types? Yes.
What's under the actual single
What's under the actual, okay, so let's show that. So basically, it's a, so there it is. So it's going to essentially create a page, and I don't want to confuse anyone, but essentially this is just web design. So what it's going to do is it's going to provide you the opportunity to do what your file may be doing. So if you don't want to do the file and create all the preface, or you preface your syllabus or course, you can do so here, and it'll just create a page. Okay, and so you can copy and paste your document and put that in here too. So if you'd like to do that with no external file. And then additionally, it'll show a course summary. So when they're looking at the syllabus for your audience, they'll be able to keep track of things that are coming up. So it's just a different interface. So that could be helpful for you. And it'll also show a calendar too. So it's a really nice productivity tool for your students. Okay, so let's go to the student view. Thank you for that. So I'm going to go to the settings here. Under your course menu, on the very bottom, you'll have a settings menu item. And when you click that, your sidebar will change, and you'll have a lot of course management items here. If you click student view, it's going to say, instead of edit mode, it's going to say student view. And you will then step into a student permission or a student account to simulate that. And so then you can see what's published, what's unpublished. Some cases, it'd be nice if you can test the content for visibility and or usability. So this is where you do that. And then when you want to pop out of there, you would just look to the bottom right and click Leave Student View. Okay. All right. Any other questions about content types? Yes. Okay, so where would, I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time? Peer review type assignments. I might have to defer that to our Beyond the Basics.
We'll cover peer review and Beyond the Basics. That's sort of a portion of that.
Okay.
But you can, as a global answer, in all of your assignment settings, towards the bottom, you can click peer review, and you have options to send out peer review assignments to students, either anonymously or with it. But there's a few settings you have to set, and so we'll cover that.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Yes. They can, and you can actually be specific about what file types they can upload. I'm sorry, could you say that a little bit louder? That might be a question for our ed tech team and Robin Reese. So I do know that the students have their own quota, and so I'm unsure about that actually, but that's we had that question with the digital media when we were turning in InDesign files and very heavy files. So right now everything looks good, and it doesn't count toward your course quota, but you can restrict the file type uploads. If that answers, and there shouldn't be a concern about the quota on the student's end. Okay. Any other questions about content types? Yes.
I came in a few minutes late, so
Sure.
this, I don't know if you covered this, but right up here on the left where we have syllabus, I was in there trying to edit and play in there, and I met with Mr. Steve Gunner yesterday.
Okay.
Steve, is it okay if I bring this up? Okay. And it's like, you know how it was in Blackboard. I know this isn't Blackboard, this is Canvas. But you can't really rock in that syllabi. So I asked Steve yesterday, would it be okay if I take my regular syllabus and go ahead on and take out everything Blackboard has said in there, and I manually give this syllabus to these students, because that's not user-friendly right now, and I was also beating my brains out trying to find in the online syllabus how we used to go in and see the template. I teach the human services classes.
Understood.
All that's gone away. Steve told me that yesterday, and I go, so how do we, is there a template, or is that too late for right now, and can I just kind of do what I just said, and then maybe next semester we'll have the template for those courses that you could go in and build your syllabus or copy and paste, but if I have to share.
Well, essentially, to answer your question, there's a great deal of flexibility. The online syllabus builder as a template just tries to make things easier. What we're finding is essentially that online syllabus builder creates web code, and in a way that's invisible. And so when you copy and paste it into other formats, it can become a bit troublesome to work with. And so what Canvas tries to do is it tries to do away with that
Okay.
if you're running into those issues. And so within Canvas, you can just say, I can copy and paste all that and reformat it to my liking, and it's a page.
And
So
we're
that's-
in Pages?
In Pages, yeah.
Okay, would it be too much to ask?
Sure, I think for the sake of time, what we can
Okay,
do is meet
okay.
after, because we've covered it, but I'd be happy to share that,
Thank you
revisit
so
that with
much.
you. Sure. Any other questions?
Real quick?
Sure.
I don't believe we are required to use that syllabus section in Canvas. If it doesn't work with your class, you can, as Philip's already showed us, take that out of the navigation, and you may just want to use your syllabus directly linked within the module, as he's already showed us how to do. There are still some workarounds with the syllabus portion. I think they're still even putting all the right verbiage together for it. So, just carry on as best as possible, and you may just say, I don't want to use that syllabus section because it is confusing, because the name makes you think that is the syllabus of the course when it's actually like a living course summary. So I would just submit to you to do what Philip did and put it in the module if syllabus just isn't working well for you.
So Steve, what we talked about yesterday out at North Campus, if you remember, can I just go
Yep.
with that flow?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
In Blackboard, I would put up banners on the course. Is there a way to do that?
There is, and it gets more complex with web design. And so there are instances where, and I don't want to volunteer another area, but on the FDS, faculty development specialist side, we see a lot of courses that utilize banners, and then some come with a very distinct style, all the way down to the type of fonts that we see. So there are opportunities to style this differently. If we're looking at banners, there's a way to embed images if you have those banners. And that's done so by, I'll just go into a page, and I'm going to edit this one here. So if you have your banners pre-built, and I'm going to demo this HTML editor here, but I'm just going to click in the place where I would like that image. In this case, maybe the cell, or maybe I've created my own banner. I've uploaded that into my files directory. I'm going to point to this image here. Actually, there's an embed image. I'm sorry, it would be embed image. Okay. So I'm going to look within Canvas here. I'll look within my course files, and then I click the file that I want to use, and I hit upload. Okay, and just straight in, I'm just going to hit upload. Actually, I'm sorry. I'm going to hit update. Sorry. Okay. So that's how you would populate it. And then if you have a tighter control over the HTML presentation, basically you want to use this HTML editor to control things like its responsiveness. If you go to a phone and that page might condense, you can do things with like auto scroll or width and height scaling if you set it to auto. But there are things that we can talk about too to control the images within the responsive functionality. But that's how you would, in a nutshell, embed images. Yes. I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time? So is it the exact process, same exact process with YouTube videos? Yes, it is. So I'm going to pop back into to demonstrate. We're going to look at the rich content, and I want to pop back into the rich content editor. And so to do a YouTube, thank you, that's a great question. I'm just going to, again, very similar, I'm going to go to the place where I'd like that video to reside. and then I'm going to look for the YouTube link. Now, this could be your ARC as well. So I'm going to click the YouTube, and I'm just going to type, I'm going to look for one on the fly. And so I've got a nature loop here. Okay, so now it's going to show, and you might have that specific URL, the share, so you can do that as well. In this case, I'm just hunting, and I'm going to look at this one here in the middle. I'm going to click embed. Now, in other classes, we'll cover the different ways it will embed, but essentially, by default, if you click embed, it'll take care of all the work for you. And so that's, and I'm going to hit save here just to show our work. So now we have our banner. We have our text. And so we can say, okay, check out this lecture, etc., watch the video. And so it takes care of all that web coding for you very nicely. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So let's move on to our next section. We're coming close to the end. This is our communication portion. And we've talked about calendar a little bit in brevity, inbox, and chat. We're going to discuss those in greater detail. Let's go to our calendar. Now, so we were previously in our course. To differentiate the calendar, this calendar here, when I click it, I'm not within the course anymore. I'm actually pointing to my personal calendar. And your students have the similar item, and you're going to have a way to sort through your courses. In this case, here's my personal calendar. And what's nice about this is to demonstrate that functionality. So say like I've got an assignment here on Friday, but I need to prep some study guides or something like that. So I'm going to click on the 15th intuitively or interactively, and I'm going to create an event. So I'm just going to say prep time. And so I can just interactively pipe these in. I can drag them. And also say, for instance, productivity-wise, organization-wise, perhaps I have my students, their assignments are stacked, and I want to adjust those due dates. I can just select, maybe I want to separate this assignment and this quiz. I can just drag that quiz down here, and it will change automatically. It'll automatically change the due date. And so that'll save time for you. And this actually brings up a great topic where we talk about notifications previously. So whenever you change a due date, perhaps if you use this tool, it'd be important to point out that perhaps you want your students to know that you changed the date. So under your course expectations, I'm just going to pop back into my account for a moment and show that under notifications, you may have to set some criteria with your students or an agreement with your students to say, okay, well, I'm going to change a due date, and you should know about it. So in this case, it could be a standard to say, under this due date here, notify me right away, right over here. Or you can have them say send daily, weekly, etc. But usually with things like that are very important, you probably want them to agree to always have that notify me right away. So if you're making changes on the fly with your calendar, just be aware of that setting. Else they might not know that you changed a due date. Okay, so in a nutshell, the calendar is a really nice way to interact with your students. It could be a productivity tool. The way to utilize this sidebar here, if I have 20 classes and I don't want to see them all, I would just toggle that course off. Right now you see this course here is highlighted in blue, and to correlate, this is the course, it's in blue, and I could toggle that off. It disappears from my calendar. Okay. No, yes. I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
The items on your calendar, are those populated from the assignments you created in Canvas?
They are. So it's really nice. It pipes in your course content and the due dates into your calendar automatically.
So I teach math, and we do almost all of our course management and the publisher's website.
Right.
So I would have to manually enter all that stuff.
Indeed. So that one, no submission, item in the assignments, that's where you populate it within your gradebook by a no submission. And then you would just pipe those grades in manually. Okay. So we talked about the importance of notifications for our communication tools with our aims to be transparent with our students. And we talked about the inbox. And I just want to make sure we're covering everything there in detail here. Actually, the way to create emails or messages, Canvas calls them conversations. It's basically another word for emails, internal emails within Canvas, so you'll see conversations thrown around. But to do so, you would click this button here in the middle to compose a new message. I'm actually going to take a step back and show you this item here on the left, all courses. So say like you're communicating with dozens and dozens of students from different classes, and this might feel heavy. You can now, what's nice about, to point out a difference between our Outlook email, you can't sort. So you're just going to have those flooded in your inbox. What's nice about Canvas is you can now select a course specifically, select a course and just have communications for that course. So you can just organize your time a bit more effectively and not deal with all the sorting. So it's really nice and streamlined. Okay, so and then to revisit this composed message, I'm going to send it to, I don't know who I'm sending it to. You have an address here, a contact list here. And so you can communicate to an entire course or a specific person within that field. And then very similar, standard to our email communications, a subject and a text field. But I'd like to point out the two items on the bottom left. If you'd like to provide a document or an attachment, you can do so here. And you can also provide a more personalized touch. I'm not going to do it, but you can provide a video, a recording through your desktop, or you can upload something as well. Okay, so a lot of variety there in your communication. Okay. Announcements, very similar to blogging in my interpretation. Basically, you're updating with news. I'm going to step into that course again. Okay, so you'll have your announcements on your course menu. And I'm going to step into announcements. Again, the blue button to create new content items. Okay. Announcement title, rich content editor, same thing with creating a page, essentially. Same thing. It's just it's piped into that blog portion of your course. And then you have options to post to certain sections here. Add attachments. And this is where if you're pulling them in from Blackboard, you can now delay posting. Okay, so you're not always writing. You can just pre-write them all and then release them whenever you want to. Okay. Okay. All right. Discussions. So here's your panel for discussions. You're going to see on the very top pinned discussions. And what that is basically if you want something that's always on top, unlike your blog where you have things in a descending order from the most recent to the last, pinned, to clarify, is basically what you always want at the very top. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to step into Betsy's here, Dr. Morrell, Stout Morrell, and her discussions. Looks like so. So in this case, we have a questions for the professor. So keeping those communication channels open. That's another item for you to consider. And then you have your discussion threads. Places where you can have that critical response and then have these graded. Okay. All right. And then your chat feature. This is a real-time communication channel, if you like. So if you're online and you're conducting a class and you'd like the student interaction, this is a place where that can happen in real time. Okay, and I'll list all your students that are currently logged in, and you can have that real-time conversation. Okay. Okay. All right, so let's recap the communication tools with with a Q&A, shall we? So any questions so far about communication tools? Yes.
Say that we want to post an announcement about a live chat, and that automatically emails the students when we post the announcement.
Depending on their notifications.
So we should have those notifications on.
Yes. Anyone else? So that question was about announcements. How do the students receive them? So they can receive them automatically through the notification settings.
Can we set that up so that all of our students do that?
I'm sorry?
Can we set it up so that all of our students have to receive them, or they have to do it?
They would have to do it. They would have to do it, yes. So the question was, can we preset our students' notification settings? And to my knowledge, they have to do it. So we cannot really manipulate their permissions. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay, for time's sake, we're running short on time. Let's see here. Okay. Okay, so to wrap it up, we're going to talk about managing the course. So we'll pretend that your course is it's ready to go. Okay. You're going to have assignments graded. Actually, this precedes that. We're going to pretend for a moment that your class is live, just for the sake of managing the course. So we didn't talk about gradebook yet, but just to take a quick peek under the grade menu item. You'll be presented your grade book. Okay. For privacy reasons, I'm just going to pop back into my sandbox here. Okay, and so sequentially, it's going to list everything sequentially, and then you have the ability to drag things over if you like. A lot of folks like to see that final grade, or that tally up at the beginning, so you could just drag nicely. And then this is where you can see, we'll cover in greater detail in Beyond the Basics to see their grading analytics. And to do a quick grading demo, you might see something turned in. In this case, normally you would see a paper icon, but in this case, I'm just going to click in that grade, that point value field, and you're going to see an arrow that points to the right. And what that does is it brings up your grading panel. So you have a lot of options there. So I'd hate for you to be confused, but you can apply a grade here, but you can also now point to your speed grader. And that pulls up their actual assignment submission. And so you can apply a grade here and submit comments as well. Later on in Beyond the Basics and other courses, you have the ability to pipe in a rubric. And that's a whole nother discussion. But you can have the fields of points interactive, and you can just click on them to apply your points. Okay. Now another frequently asked question is, how do I get back to my course? So you just go to the very far left, and it pops you back into the grade book. Okay. All right. Attendance we'll cover in greater detail, just for time's sake, in our Beyond the Basics. Basically, you'll find that in your course menu item, your course menu, rather. And let's see here, validating links. Okay, so now we can pretend our course is ready to go. I'm going to go to my course settings here. And so you'll have a lot of course management items here. If you're migrating heavily from Blackboard, we're coming across a lot of broken links. So to check your links for usability, you want to click the validate links to make sure everything is lining up with their URLs. And so what this does is it's already pre-checked, but when you click the button to start the validation, it'll look through your whole course design, and it'll look for URLs to other web pages to see if they're broken. Okay, so no broken links found. So I'm ready to go. I don't have to update anything. And under settings here, I'll just revisit that. Normally you'll have a publish icon or button. So I'm going to pop back into my dashboard. I'm going to show this course here. And so under your settings, actually your home rather, so under the sidebar, you'll have the ability to publish on the sidebar here to the right. Okay. So that would be the method in publishing your course, making it available to your students. So it's less of a drill down than Blackboard. And then also ensure, just to point out, your course is published now. We'll pretend your course is published, but always double check to make sure your content has these green buttons here to ensure that the content is available to your students. Migrating we'll cover in greater detail. Essentially, when we go to our course dashboard, you should have available a course Canvas migration. Okay, and that process is really straightforward. I'm just going to step into a module just to give you a sneak peek. I know it's a big concern, but there's going to be a way to do it by hand if you want to do it piecemeal, piece by piece, or you can export by package. And that is basically the fail-safe method. It just requires you to do some work on the back end. When you're in your Canvas course, you may have to finesse things. But essentially, what we're doing is we go into this module here, and you'll discover where to export from within Blackboard. Okay, so we'll go over the export method. Okay, and then it steps into Canvas, and Canvas makes it really easy. So all you do is you just go into your settings, and your Canvas Basics training module will cover this in greater detail. We don't expect you to remember everything, but do know that everything that we talked about is covered in great detail within the Canvas Basics training course. And just to give you an idea, I would look at my sidebar here, and because I exported that Blackboard zip file, I would just import course content. I'd like to point out a couple things here. There's 2 Blackboard listings. So the one that you want is Blackboard 6/7/8/9. Okay. The other one that you'll be using when you have your course ready and you want to use that in another section is copy a Canvas course, but we'll cover that in greater detail within the Canvas migration course. Okay. All right, so any questions about managing the course? Not at all? Okay. Well, we hope this was helpful for you. Without further questions, we hope this helped develop a better understanding or insight into how to maneuver within Canvas, how to build course content, communicate with your students, and how to manage your course. All right, so thanks for coming out, and let us know if you need any other help. Thank you.